Welcome to Teen or Tween Book Talk. Today we are talking with Kandi Wyatt, as she's a middle grade author, and among other books, she has published the Dragon Courage series. Jessica Renwick, author of the Starfell Book Series, and I'm Lyndi Allison, the middle grade young adult author of the Summer Triangle Trilogy and the Winter Hexagon Trilogy. You'll find our bios and contact information in the description below. Today, we'll share various paranormal characters who appear in middle grade or young adult books, the ones we've read and the ones we write. Whether these characters are ghosts, angels, mythological creatures, or other paranormal beings, middle graders and young adults are seeking meaning in paranormal or supernatural fiction. In an article entitled, Experts Explain Our Love of Fear and Fascination with the Paranormal, Eddie White, who teaches a course called Weird Stuff, How to Think About the Supernatural, says there's a randomness to life. We want structure, explanations, or a sense of belonging, and the supernatural provides this. Regardless of whether you're just looking for a fun read for young readers, or to help them find their place in the world, we have some great reads to share. Kandi, what middle grade or young adult books have you read in which paranormal characters play into the story?
Well, I love fantasy, so dragons tend to be my go-to. But I think my favorite would be Wayne Thomas Batson. And he has several different stories. The Door Within trilogy has a separate world where they have what are called glimpses. And the glimpses are literally souls of people from our world, but the two can't meet. So if someone from our world happens to head over into the other realm, they can't, their glimpse shows up over in our side. However, it does mean that you can meet people like your grandparents' glimpse. And if a glimpse dies, that means that the person here on Earth has died as well. So that left some suspense happening as we started to figure out who, the one boy is meeting these different people and connecting with. That might, wait a minute. Oh no, when a glimpse ends up passing away. Another book that has paranormal creatures would be Cornelia Funke's The Dragon Rider. And that literally is one of my favorite middle grade books of all times, especially if you listen to the audio by Brendan Fraser. He does an amazing job of all of those character voices, etc. And it was one of the first ones where my kids said, Mom, you have to listen to this. And so we sat down together and we listened. And it has Sorrel, who is a brownie, Twigleg, who's a homunculus, and he's always concerned that he'll be turned back into whatever it was that his creator, who was an alchemist from long, long ago, had used to create him. Besides those fun ones who bicker back and forth, and Sorrel is constantly threatening to eat Twigleg, there's the golden one. And he is another homunculus, but he's in the form of a huge golden dragon. And he ate the alchemist creator. And so Twigleg can never find out what exactly he was made out of. And then there's Fire Drake the dragon. So Jessica, what about you? Have any of the protagonists in your middle grade or young adult books that you're reading been heavily influenced by paranormal characters?
Yeah, so I mostly read fantasy and paranormal books. So I know a lot of protagonists influenced by paranormal creatures. Most recently, I just finished reading The Last Wish by Jenna Lee Yun. It is so good, and she brings in a lot of Korean mythology, which I just thought it was so neat to see. The paranormal creatures and mythology from another culture's perspective. So she has the camp is haunted by a Korean ghost called, I believe it's pronounced Buisin, and there's also Korean goblin in it called, I believe it's pronounced Adokabi. And just learning about that was really neat. And there's the differences between them, the different powers they have. And so the Dokubi actually hunts witches. And it turns out that Ronnie, the main character, she is a witch, which she doesn't find out until she gets to camp because it's run by other witches. And that's how, like, there's little clues along the way, but she didn't know what any of it meant. And so a part of this author did a really great job with the magic system with these witches and creatures. She had a lot of the clues being that Ronnie was speaking in rhymes. So her witches, all of their spells are in rhymes, but Ronnie couldn't understand why she was speaking in rhymes, and she like couldn't help it. So that was the big clue that she was a witch. And then she also used cookbooks as like the secret place where the spells are kept. And I just thought it was so fun. It was really neat. So I just really enjoyed seeing that like fresh perspective on paranormal elements, supernatural type of stuff. So yeah, what about you?
Well, first off, thanks for sharing, both of you. Kandi, those
Yeah.
glimpses sound like very cool characters. And I agree. It's always fun to learn about new cultures and, of course, to, find new ways of approaching a story. So those all sound like great reads. Thanks for sharing those. So Sheena, the main character, and the Girl Who Looked Beyond the Stars by L.B. Ann, she's a likable teen who witnesses an angel touch her father. When he suddenly recovers from a severe injury that he suffered in a car accident, Sheena goes on this mission to investigate how this came about. Along the way, she receives mysterious texts. She's guided by a mentor, and later she discovers that she's a glimmer, not to be confused with the glimpses that Kandi referred to earlier. A glimmer is a person who sees things that other people don't. Even though she's still discovering what it's like to be a glimmer, in book 2, The Girl Who Spoke to the Wind, Sheena must learn how to use her skill to deal with the mercs. They're kind of like demon-like characters who are carried on the wind if she hopes to save her classmates. I love the messages in these fun reads. The paranormal elements show how Sheena is different and how she comes to understand she doesn't need to be like everyone else. And what a great thing to learn when you're middle grade. Sometimes belonging means being accepted for your uniqueness. These are the first 2 books in a 7-book series, which I plan to continue reading. And These Broken Stars by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. The 2 main characters plummet out of hyperspace and they crash land on a terraformed planet. Lilac can hear whispers, but Tarver can't hear them. So this creates some conflict between them. He seems to think that Lilac is being haunted and is losing her mind. You can imagine how that was not well received. This is until one night she wakes up and she says the whispers told her to get out of the cave they're sleeping in or they will die. As soon as they exit the cave, an avalanche comes crashing down and blocks the entrance. Suddenly, Tarver believes she can hear them. And later he gets a vision of his own house from the whispers. And he has to admit that their existence. Lilac assumes these beings are extraterrestrials. The whispers lead them to a building where they uncover many secrets. I'm not going to give those secrets away today. You're going to have to read through right to the very end to find out what these characters discovered. And the purpose of the paranormal in this book seems threefold: to create conflict between the 2 main characters, to warn them of danger, and to lead them to discover a big truth. So I think it's pretty cool that these characters, strongly influence these stories we've been reading. So Kandi, we've mentioned some paranormal characters in the books we've read. What paranormal beings show up in the stories that you've written?
Dragons seem to come in no matter what. I actually tried to create a world without dragons, and yet, nope, they showed up. And so I have dragons. In Myth Coast Adventures, it's my one that has the most various different mythological creatures. It's set in a rural Oregon town, literally created off of where I live and inspired by students that I had in my class. And so they find a dragon egg on the beach. They find a unicorn in the horse pasture. And then they follow Bigfoot through the rift where the characters are coming from, along with a government agent and a poacher who's after all the magic. And so once they follow Bigfoot into that world here, we end up with all kinds of mythological characters. We have fairies, we have a centaur who helps guide them into, oh, you're supposed to go help the chosen one. We even have a brownie that might have been inspired by Sorrel, little irascible. She just, he actually is really one of my fun favorite characters in the series. And then there's the Gautama. The Gautama are the souls of those mythical creatures that have chosen to follow the enemy of the creator. And so they are contained underground and exhibit as a blob as they come after Jeremy, the main character who had inadvertently set them free and gave them power into the world. In my most recent, the world that wasn't supposed to have dragons, 4 stars, yeah, 4 stars over Ardats. This is the most recent one in that series, Divided. We have Gia, who is the creator. And when the planet was tilted on its axis by a section of the moon that came falling into Ardats. There we go. Gia provided the world with Gideodar and Fossa. So these are people who are able to help them navigate that new world, because now one side's always in dark, one side's always in light. And so through those differences, the Gideodar are those who can use the various elements, water, earth, fire, sun, planets, etc. And they follow Gia's guidance. While the Fossa are more of seers or prophets who can help guide people in their ways. But there has been the mention of the enemy of our souls. And in the last book I drafted, that enemy came to life and was given a name. And he's the one who guides the Sangli. They're the ones who listen to the enemy and want the power that the Gideodar have. Either they are Gideodar who don't want to listen to Gia, or they are the ones who are coming up with ways of trying to pull that elemental magic and use it to their own good. And so those are who my various creatures are, or characters that deal with the paranormal. Jessica, what about you?
Well, I just want to say I love how complex your world building is. I have been eyeing up your books for a while, and I need to read them. They sound right up my alley. So for my books, I have my Starfell series. There's 5 books out in it, and with one more coming next year. So this is the first one, the Book of Chaos, and the 5th one, the Song of Embers, which you can guess what creature I have in that one. That's a phoenix. So I have quite a few creatures in that one, and I do a combination of like traditional ones and then some more unique ones. So for my traditional ones, I have a dragon as well, and she's one of my favorites, my favorite characters of mine. And I also have like a dire wolf, and I have a lightning bird, which is a bird that can control the weather. And then I also have my winged horse, which I use its technical term of terapist, because while doing my research about the winged horses, I read that Pegasus was the actual name of a certain therapist. So, but it's been used to describe the whole species. So I thought that was kind of neat. It's definitely, I have a legend in the back or a glossary in the back of my book to show how words are pronounced, because it's actually spelled P-T-E-R-I-P-P-U-S, which as an adult, I didn't know how to pronounce that. So I made sure to reference that in the glossary. But his name is Nightwind, and yeah, he is what would be most commonly known as a Pegasus. And then I also have a few other creatures that I kind of made up. I have, well, one of the fan favorites that I always hear about is Star. And she is a fire-breathing chicken that also lays golden eggs.
Oh,
And the kids love her. I did not expect it, but I get asked about her so many times, and they want to make sure she's coming back in the last book. So yes, she's coming back. And in the first book, she acts as when Fable goes through the magical book and lands in Starfell. She first meets Star, the fire-breathing chicken, or as I call them, firehawks, and she is Fable's guide to get to where she needs to go. And she's just kind and motherly, but then she has this funny habit that when she gets spooked, she bursts out with a fire breath. So yeah, the kids like her. And another thing about her, she can read a being's aura, so she could tell right away if she liked someone or not. And she liked Fable immediately. So she's a neat character. And then another creature that I kind of made up that I really like is called an uprooter, and they're lizards that have the magical power to lure you to follow them wherever they go. So they can be really good or they can be really bad, depending on who they're working for. So and then my new book coming out in October is Ghosts of Gastown. And so that one's a little bit different from my Starfell. That's more in the realm of ghosts. It's a spooky-ish story with a lot of, it's set in Vancouver, Canada, and I weaved a lot of Vancouver history into that one. So it definitely deals with like your normal ghosts. And there's also a demon in it and a reaper in it. And I also deal with aspects of the veil, kind of that space between the living and the dead. So those are the paranormal aspects in my book. And what about you, Lyndi?
Well, first of all, I'm really finding it very fun that there are some familiar and then some new imaginative creatures in each of your book, or new spins on the familiar. And so, I like the like-mindedness we share in that aspect of our writing. And I think it makes for a lot of fun for young readers. So there are actually many paranormal beings in my six stories. I have 2 young adult science fantasy trilogies. In The Lines Between Our Stars, which is book 1 of the Summer Triangle trilogy, we have an astronomy geek young teen named Jace, and he attempts to contact aliens, and suddenly one appears in the lab. And it is modeled on the constellation of Draco. So I play a lot of Greek myths, and I have many Greek characters in mind, but also other ones as well. So Draco is actually like a snake dragon. And she asks for help to rescue her son, who's trapped on a planet light years away. So Jason and Gloria, they decide they're going to steal her mother's digiporter, which is a transportation device that helps them to travel to this planet and rescue her son. It's also how they get from planet to planet in the first trilogy, helping various aliens, and in the second trilogy, finding the seeds that help cure Jason's mom's cancer. But Draca, she doesn't need a ship. She can slither float there all on her own. But she is definitely the inciting incident that gets this series going. Now, the readers of my 2 trilogies will find quite a few other extraterrestrials along the way. Some of them are good and some evil. Like Serpens, a celestial snake who takes human DNA and uses it to create plants for his celestial garden. That's in book 1. And the helpful ghost-like beings who help Jason and Gloria escape his clutches. In book 2, The Bridges Between Us, Cygnus, a swan that flies from island to island, provides the transportation that the teens need. They have to get to each island to find a key so that they can unlock a door behind which are all the trapped aliens. A swizzard is a swan lizard. So that's one of those ones where we have a play on a creature. It's a combination of creatures, just like the snake dragon. And he's building an army to take over Earth. So there's a lot of a lot more battle references. I wouldn't go to a space opera, but it does have a little bit more high risk in that they're not just rescuing the aliens, they're also saving people back home. Then in the clashing of our worlds, centaurs, you'll recognize that from your books, Kandi, they're intent on stopping the teens. The teens are on a planet that has a tribe. It's called the Pan tribe, and they're comprised of, I like you, Jessica, I'm not sure how to pronounce a word, Sarters, the goat people. And they're trying to reach a mountain where their children can be healed from a poison ingestion. And then readers learn of all kinds of other encounters with nymphs and the healing of our wounds with mega-sized insects. And then in the last two books, it really leans heavily on the gods of ancient Greece and other characters that you might find in Greek mythology, like the Minotaur. So each of these beings plays a role in either helping the teens on their mission or in hindering them. Some threaten their lives. Many introduce them to new customs, cause them to question their beliefs, or provide guidance. Others give them a sense of belonging. And Jessica, like you have a Pegasus, I have a Pegasus in one of mine. And in mine, Pegasus is an oracle. So, you know, it's fun to take these characters and have them play out in a different way in our stories. So these fun reads, they fulfill what readers are looking for in paranormal reads. So now, Kandi, tell us, what are you working on now?
Well, when I first heard this question, when you prepped us for what was going on, I had a completely different answer because I was still working on a story and then I finished it up. So that's kind of exciting. I was working at the time on what was going to be 5 years after my most recent one, Divided. And it was going to following Marid and several other characters that I can't necessarily say because of spoilers, as they went ahead and were trying to stop one of those Sanyali from gathering the weather dragons, because the winds are what control and keep the planet okay. Without those winds going back and forth, we have either a completely frozen on one side and a completely desert on the other with no good in between part. And this Sanyali just wanted power. And so he was gathering as many of the blue dragons as he could to control those winds. But I finished that one up, and I've been brainstorming a middle grade series in the 4 Stars Over Ardat's world for many years. So far, all that is out are young adult. And so I'm thinking it's time to introduce my younger readers to this tilted planet. And Deity is a street urchin who is caught stealing by one of the royal guards, Duro. And Duro shows up in my my upcoming Kickstarter book, Bonded Crowns. And this story will start 5 years after, again, don't know what it is with the 5 years there, but anyway, after Bonded Crowns. And Duro, stops him from the stealing, makes him go back with that, but he takes him under his wing and invites him to be his swoop here, or his squire. And so, along with Duro's daughter Anya, Deity and Anya are going to go on many different types of adventures as they both find out what it means to be a squire, the captain of the royal, or captain, squire to the Ridditor, the royal guard. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Jessica, what about you?
So that sounds very good. I need to read your YA books now too. Right now, I'm working on the follow-up to Ghosts of Gastown, which is going to be called The Trapped Souls of Deadman's Island. And it's also based in Vancouver, around the history of Deadman's Island in the Stanley Park area there. So there'll be ghosts and demons and all that kind of fun stuff in that one as well. And then I'm also working on, I'm just kind of in the plotting stages and still reworking a few of my earlier ideas on the last book in the Starfell series, which will be the Star of Truth. And yeah, that's about it. What about you, Lyndi?
Well, my current work in progress is off topic for today, and it's a really big change for me. I've been writing young adult fiction in first person, and now I'm writing an adult psychological thriller called The Gem Exchange about the trafficking of young girls. So my story does have a middle grade point of view character, but there's nothing paranormal about this one. This one's a lot about the hard truths that we learn about that horrible industry. So I want to say, I've only read the Book of Chaos out of all the books that I've heard. Kandi, I got to get up to date on yours and the books that you both recommended. I felt my TBR list like growing higher and higher. And so I'm pretty excited about that. But Kandi, I want to thank you for joining me and sharing the paranormal characters in your stories and the stories of other authors.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And Jessica, thank you for sharing your insights on paranormal characters in middle grade literature.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
And that's Tween Teen Book Talk. If there's a topic that you'd like us to discuss, please share it in the comments. Thank you for joining us. And most importantly, keep reading and keep writing.